Hello, fellow cyborgs, and welcome to another Author Spotlight. I wanted to talk to you guys about Patrick Rothfuss today because his name is probably rolling around in your skull for one reason or another, and I think that his work is not talked about often enough in regards to its accessibility. Patrick Rothfuss is definitely an author I would recommend to someone who is new to the high or epic fantasy genre. Rothfuss, alongside George R.R. Martin and Jacqueline Carey, are three authors that I would recommend to someone who's new to the classic traditional fantasy genre. They are lengthy books, but their language is not terribly flowery, nor is it really archaic in its tone, and the stories have really accessible, modern sort of characters, or at least characters that a modern audience will have no issue connecting to. They also all have really fast-paced stories. And when I say fast-paced stories, I don't mean that action, 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 everything happens really quickly, but I mean that it feels that way. For instance, in this book, you don't leave the university until about halfway through this 1100-page volume. But it doesn't matter because you are given enough to work with, enough to care about, and enough to keep your interest going in that one setting in this universe, in this world, that it doesn't matter that people aren't traveling or anything. That comes later. So the Kingkiller Chronicles, I would highly recommend for you to recommend to someone that you want to get to reading fantasy novels. Patrick Rothfuss is a fantasy author that won't scare newcomers away from the fantasy genre. So, as you may have guessed, I have read The Wise Man's Fear, the second book in the Kingkiller Chronicles, which implies that I have, and indeed it is true, finished The Name of the Wind, which is the first book in the Kingkiller Chronicles. Now, The Name of the Wind, I put down at page 500, I believe, and had to take a break and pick it up later because it does take practice. It's a different sort of reading when you're reading an 1100-page tome. There's a sort of endurance there that you don't really have to tap into as a reader unless you're reading a lot of these lengths of books. So with practice, I managed to read The Wise Man's Fear in less than 2 weeks and didn't have to limit it all. And of course, everyone knows about his newly released novella, The Slow Regard of Silent Things, which focuses on one character within his Kingkiller Chronicles that has a very enigmatic past story. I haven't read that yet. I'm looking forward to it because I am interested in hearing more about Ori. I think she was very lovely and Luna Lovegoody, but in a less fluffy sort of way. Some of you may not be aware of Patrick Rothfuss's picture books, the Princess and Mr Whiffle series. I have read and own both of these, and they are absolutely fantastic. They're a bit dark, but they're not terribly gory or anything like that. This is just a wonderful side to Patrick Rothfuss that you would only get glimpses of in his Kingkiller Chronicles. If you haven't checked them out yet, I highly recommend that you do, but they are picture books, not for children. So please don't read them to your 4-year-old or you will give them nightmares. Another reason why I wanted to spotlight Patrick Rothfuss is because he is one of my favorite humans. I've already said this in one of my videos, but I really wish he was my cousin because then I would get to see him a few times a year and he would be obligated to know my name, which would just be really fantastic. He created World Builders, a charity that rewards nerds and geeks and book lovers for donating to Heifer International by going through his charity World Builders. Every year they do at least one ginormous, huge fundraiser, and it's just incredibly epic. I actually got the second Princess and Mr Whiffle book when I donated during their last fundraiser. Also, if you haven't checked out, he's been on a few Geek and Sundry videos. He did for a few months a video series called Storyboards where he and his author friends talked about various aspects of storytelling, not just in novels. I believe they did a video about storytelling in video games, and they were just amazing. I really am looking forward to them coming back because they are coming back, aren't they? Also was a guest on an episode of Tabletop Season 2's Lord of Waterdeep, and it was absolutely hysterical. I rewatch that quite often. So if you haven't already, please give Patrick Rothfuss some of your undivided attention, whether it be through his charity, through his Kingkiller Chronicles, Princess and Mr. Whiffle books, or other internets. I hope you are enjoying what you're reading, be it high fantasy or no. Thank you for watching, and until next time, continue to be lovely.